Hello everybody, how are we going? Thank you very much for coming along. Nice little crowd out there. I see there's still some people trickling in the back. So, my name's Josh Boys and I'm the Azure lead here in Australia. Some of you know me, some of you don't, but I'm going to be hanging around all day. So if anyone's got any questions they want to come and ask, I'll be around, probably not eating food. For those, I'm on a keto diet, so I can't have any carbs today. So if I'm cranky, you know why. So today's going to be a great day. It's jam-packed full of lots of really exciting things. And we've got a great team coming down from the US, from all over. People from Colorado, from Seattle, kind of lots of random places. But anyway, it's great fun. We had a great day last week in Sydney. It's awesome. I think Melbourne can top it. I think you guys look really, really excited. So, are you excited? Like everyone seems, sitting back. Cool. Okay, so what I do want to take a moment to is acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. So we acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we pay respect to elders past and present. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to this city and to this region. Because without them we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much, and I'd like to hand over to Alison Krug, who was the wonderful person who brought down this team for us to see today. So.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Allison. Thank you so much, Josh, for the last minute notice of doing the introduction for our tour. Sorry about the carb situation. We can talk about that later. It is so exciting to be in Melbourne. Turns out you don't pronounce the R, learned that the hard way. It's very exciting for us to be here from the States, and then we've also got Scott, who lives based in Colombia at the moment. So we are the Cloud Developer Advocates. This is our second pass at the Azure Developer Tour. So what that means is we're still kind of working everything out, to be honest. We're very passionate about technology, obviously, and we are agnostic in our approach. So when we do these tours and these events and these community gatherings, our intent is to really focus on the learning and the teaching component. So like, for example, today, we're gonna walk you through building an app, creating a startup from end to end. And it's agnostic in nature in that whatever your technical expertise is, we hope to have something for you. I'll do a little housekeeping just to kick us off before we start the show. So we're here at Shed 14. Is this anyone's first time at this venue? Raise of hands. Wow, okay. Mine too. Next door, we will have morning tea at 10:45. We'll have lunch served at 12:15. And we'll get out of here today at about 2:45. At 2:45. There are restrooms on this side of the house, and then also restrooms where the food and drink are served next door. Also upstairs in the food and drink area, there are a few different kind of like quiet rooms or lounges. So if anyone at any moment needs to take a break, you need to take a call, or you just need a quiet space away from all of your new friends, that's okay too. Feel free to take use or make use of those spaces next door. So with that being said, my role as the community lead for the Cloud Developer Advocacy team is really exciting. It's new. Our team has only been around for about 1.5 years. So as we kind of move through Microsoft events and we talk with developers and technologists about what their pain points are and what they would like us to improve, we really want to stay centric to the local communities, stay committed to getting to know you, so when we come back, we can continue to kind of work on those relationships. That being said, a quick note about swag or merchandise. There will be t-shirts and fun things that we'll give away during the lunch hour. Raise your hand if you're here for the free shit. That's okay. Okay, and we're awake. This is fine. Like, I'll be the first to say, I created a shirt that says puppies and Azure on it. I love t-shirts, it's cool. But on that note, instead of giving away like a lot of things, we just have a couple of items. We have cut our swag budget in half, and what we would like to do with the second portion of that swag budget is reinvest it into your local tech community. So that being said, I will be accepting nominations for any technical group, meetup, organization, maybe a school that has like a STEM program, or any underrepresented group that can maybe benefit from a few dollars from us instead of like 50 more t-shirts. I'll be accepting nominations from you today. If you've got any ideas or groups you'd like to nominate, please come talk to me. And then we'll pick a winner at random and announce after lunch who will receive a few $1,000s from us. I think that's kind of the right thing to do given the state of our world. It makes sense to reinvest it right back into the local Melbourne community. So, yeah, it's cool. I think that's probably enough from me. I'd like to invite my team up to the stage so we can get going. Come on up. Okay.
Come on up, my friend.
All right. So, quick roll call. Seth Juarez, Seattle, Washington.
What's up?
Bernwurst, Germany, but now Seattle.
Yeah.
Scott Kate, presently Columbia, sometimes Florida, sometimes Arizona. Jasmine Greenaway, Brooklyn, New York, yes.
Woo!
And Brian Holt, I think our latest transplant to Seattle via San Francisco. Oh, he hasn't actually moved in, but Seattle is where he'll be based. And again, my name is Allison. I'm based out of Colorado, and I look forward to chatting with you as the day goes on.
Nice.
Thank you.
Allison.
Yeah.
Let's give her a hand. Isn't she amazing?
So the five of us are going to be your startup.
That's right.
And we're doing something a little unique on this tour we've never done before. Typically, when we set up a show like this, everyone sits in a room and says, okay, you'll demo this and I'll demo that and you can demo this new thing and that new widget. And we want to do something a little bit different where we're actually going to mimic building a startup. So we're going to do a whole piece of software from scratch. We've got to figure out what that is. So you'll be hearing from all of us from the day, but Seth and I will get it started and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So something with Azure, we need to create a startup, right, Seth?
Let's just create a startup.
Okay, most important thing, we need a domain.
Let's think of something that has never been done.
And then a domain.
No, it's domain first and then
Okay.
idea. Everyone has like this graveyard of domain names they purchase for their cool ideas. Every dev has one.
How many of you have extra domains you're not using? Oh, everybody?
Oh, yeah. They're like,
Nice, we got them.
and the ones that didn't raise their hand
Lying.
are shameful.
Yeah.
They're lying.
Right.
So let's do this. Let's make a social application that's going to make us billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Something everyone can use.
Something that nobody's done before.
It's got to be unique.
It's got to be something that people can use every day.
Okay, let's think.
One of the things that happened is when I came into this pier.
Oh, sorry, my phone just rang.
Oh.
I was going to take a picture.
I literally just had an idea from that.
What?
Like when I walked in, I took pictures of this harbor because it was so beautiful.
Pictures.
Let's do something with pictures.
Who has pictures? More liars.
Okay. How about we make a website where people can upload pictures?
And comment.
No.
Oh, and they can say no.
What?
And yes.
I think, so they comment and then they can say this is a good picture and a bad picture.
I figured it out. I got it.
Let's do it.
Unlikephotos.com social network.
What?
.au. That's the domain.
No.
Don't register that. We're going to get it later.
So don't like myphoto.com?
We will be, so here's unique. This is coming together.
Okay.
We're the only, listen to this, it's in lights.
Hold on, everyone I feel like this is important.
We're the only social network with unlike.
Finally, this is what everybody wants.
No one has that right now.
Nobody.
Unlikephototouraustralia.com.au.
Do you feel that maybe that's a little short?
We can put a bit.ly in front of it.
That's right. Okay. We get,
Okay.
So unlike photo
I like
tours
where
of-
this is going.
Okay.
So we need a website.
Okay.
We need someone to build a website. We'll hire a developer.
Yeah, we don't do that crap. We have the ideas.
We need someone to host the website. Like we
I
need
don't
a
care.
server.
I just want the idea to be done.
Just the idea.
Okay.
I think we have the idea. Photos, comments, upload, download, upvote, downvote.
Did you say download too?
I did accidentally.
That is amazing.
Should we be able to download photos?
From the internet?
I mean, not all of them.
Yeah, okay. I think we can do that.
Okay, so that's going to be our premise for the day. And everything we do for the whole day is going to be around that app. Just like I was a startup,
That's right. And not only that, but we're actually going to give you the code, so you can actually run this yourself and become investors in our new multi-billion-dollar industry.
So this is a Microsoft show, so there's some things we have to use SQL Server, we've got to use .NET, we have to put it on Windows
Let's just use
Phone.
whatever our dev wants.
Come on, Windows Phone?
Anyone still have one of those? That guy right there.
There's a couple
We're
of them
buying
here.
him lunch, dang it. We're buying you all lunch, I think.
You know what? Lunch is on Seth. How's that?
Let's do it.
That's good. Okay. So actually, let's go back on that a little bit. I mean, if we were 10 years ago, Microsoft, we would probably have those rules. But let's just hire a web developer that's really good.
Okay.
And just let them write a web app. Doesn't matter what it is.
Doesn't matter who they are, what they do.
And then we'll figure out a way that we can host that.
Okay.
What else? Oh, has to be secure.
No.
I mean, we
Have
can't
any
just...
of you gotten all those emails from your new friends in Europe?
Oh, it has to be GDPR.
I didn't know I signed up for so many things.
If I don't reply to that, does that mean they can't spam me? Like, please click here for me to keep spamming you. And I'm like,
I replied them all a very nice long email about
and they were all read.
Yes.
So it needs to be secure. How are we going to keep people from uploading crazy photos from their neighbors?
We'll have to be able to ban people.
Ban?
Yeah.
Okay. What about, oh, I know. If we make people log in, then we'll know who they are.
Oh,
and
see,
they
that's
won't,
smarter than my idea, I think.
they won't, so let's make everybody create a new username and password.
Okay.
They'll log in.
Oh, wait, I don't want to store people's passwords.
All right. How are they? Thumbprint?
Maybe a picture.
Somehow they'll get in.
Nice.
Ah?
Nice.
Come on. Okay, so how about, oh, we are a social network, but maybe we'll use another social network to let them log in, like Twitter.
Yes.
Okay. Because that will make people not upload bad pictures because it will be on their Twitter.
That's right.
We'll know who they are.
We're watching you.
Right? And we trust you. We're all friends here. No one's gonna hurt us.
Yes.
It's good to be live on
maybe.
stage.
I mean,
Does anyone want to hurt us? Yet?
I see an evil grin from somebody in that section over there.
I feel like there's something missing with like a website on a phone with photos, like my camera. What's missing?
I feel like we need to infuse AI because that's what marketing says all the bloody time.
It'll make us more money.
I gotta say the word blockchain and then we'll make a ton of money.
Unlike photos with blockchain.com.au.
And AI in Melbourne. .com.au.
I feel like ML might be we could do a play on Melbourne with the ML, machine learning.
There's an M and an L in Melbourne.
MLB is the airport, right? Yeah, see?
That's Major League Baseball.
Machine learning better. No.
That was really...
Okay. How about getting something in the App Store? How many of you
Yes.
do we have to support Androids and iPhones?
We have to support people.
Right. They are going to be the core of our success.
That's right.
Okay. So how are we going to get an app?
Well, I don't know. I just have the ideas, man.
Let's let the developers figure it out.
Let's do that.
We'll just say we need a mobile app, works on iPhone and Android, and whatever
My work
else.
is done.
Well, all right. Okay. Seth. I feel like I should give a lap around Azure as a quick introduction to those of you that may be brand new. So we've got a beautiful, diversified audience during the registration. Some of you told us you'd never seen Azure before. Some of you told us you use Azure on a very regular basis. I'm going to spend about 5 minutes giving you a quick lap around what I refer to as the Azure Mansion. So show of hands, how many of you have never logged into Azure before? You've never seen it? Okay, good. There's maybe 5 or 10% of you, not very many, but a few. So I'm going to introduce you to what some people call the Azure portal. I call this the Azure Mansion. Inside the Azure Mansion, there's over 150 rooms for you to party in. In each one of those rooms, you could literally build your entire career just focusing on that one piece of networking or storage or compute or something that's related to security or data. And so in order to dive into this, I really want to just give a quick introduction to the Azure Mansion and really focus on 3 parts of the website. Because the truth is, once you start using Azure, you will be living in this screen on a day-to-day basis. So it helps to know your way around. On the left-hand side, you have the floors of your mansion. So you have something in here like compute or storage, and these are going to be the floors with lots of rooms in them. So there's lots of ways to do compute. If you think of Azure as your preferred cloud platform, we want to run your code. And it's up to you to write the best code for your customers. That's what your job is, right? If you're a developer, you're writing awesome code. If you were a chef, you would be baking an amazing cake. And you can bake that cake in any kitchen you want. Our job with Azure is to be the icing on your cake. We believe that we can run your code better than any other cloud. And so throughout the day, you're going to hear us say, we don't care what kind of app you write. It could be an API. It could be a mobile app. It could be a web service. It could be a front end. It could be a back end. It could be a front end and a back end. It could be anything that you want. We want to make it better inside the Azure Mansion by doing threat protection and other features that make that icing on the cake that much easier. So this is your quick navigation. The most important feature for you to remember out of the portal is at the very top center, search. Once you start using Azure, you're going to create what we call resources, which is basically everything. Anything you do inside Azure is called a resource, a website, a database, a DNS entry, secure certificate, key vault. Any of the services that you use, all of those are resources. And then we put those in a resource group. Resource group is easy for you to manage grouping the resources together. By the way, we're really good at naming some things and maybe not so great at naming others, but resource group is one of the good names. It's a group of resources. And the benefit is that helps you control billing. That also helps you control security of who has access to everything in that resource group. So when I first started using Azure, I made the mistake of putting everything in the same resource group because I didn't really understand what it was. I'm like, this is what I'm paying for, so everything goes in there. And the truth is, you want isolated resource groups that are containers of rooms that are like each other, like a data and a web app and the DNS together, and another resource group for something else. So the reason I bring up this search is because I see very few people actually use it. The search is going to search everything in Azure as a resource and give you the ability to create a new one, but it's also going to search all of your own stuff. So as I look at this screen, you can see I have searched for the term web app, and then I've shown you all of the web apps that are available, so I can easily jump in and create one. I can also search for something like tour, and then that will show me all of the resources I've created that are tour. So once you find one of these items, you can then pin it to what we call a dashboard. This big open space in the center of the screen is a dashboard, and this is something that's extremely customizable. In fact, a lot of people don't know you can have as many of these as you want, and you can create it on your own. You can also export these and save it as a file inside your source control. You can share it with other people. You can give rights to each one of these dashboards so that certain people in your organization can create them. And this is extendable. So you can actually see more things on this screen than just the Azure resources. So if you wanted a custom dashboard, you can actually put an MD file in here. You can hit a web service and bring back some custom HTML. Or I have one here. This is actually a big screen TV in our office, just clocks around the world that's run right out of the Azure dashboard. So throughout the day, you're actually going to see us go to a number of these dashboards. So I have one down here called CI/CD. This is my continuous integration, continuous delivery. We're going to talk about that later. So that's a quick lap around Azure. And as I mentioned, this Azure Mansion, like literally there's 150 giant rooms that some of you create your entire career on, and you never leave that room. Maybe you're a data specialist. Maybe you're an AI person. Or maybe you're doing something with networking, and you just understand one little slice of that pie. That's perfect. Our goal today is not to teach you everything about the Azure Mansion. That's impossible. So we're going to stay at 30,000 feet for most of the things that we talk about, and then in about 6 different places, we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. So what I'd like to do is invite our friend Brian Holt up on stage. Brian is a phenomenal developer. As a startup, we have invested in him to build this photo app for us. And Brian actually has some world famous code. In fact, I would challenge that everyone in the room is looking at and seeing and utilizing his code on a day-to-day basis. And so we've hired Brian. This is actually pretty funny, because if you look at the repo, and the source code for this is available, this is literally a week or two old, right?
Yeah.
So he said, hey, Brian, welcome to the company. We're going to do a photo sharing app. So people are going to upload photos. We need to log in with Twitter. It's going to upvote, downvote. And we're going to show some investors tomorrow. Can we mock something up?
Sure.
Does that happen? Is that realistic? Some of you are like, yeah, that's cool, no problem. And others of you are like tomorrow. But we actually did have something. It was not pretty. There was no CSS, but we got something working, and then we've dressed it up from there. So Brian's going to walk you around the app. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Holt.
So I want you to picture that you're, let's say, sitting somewhere maybe like in Fitzroy, having a nice Victoria Bitters, and maybe watching some footy. I'm a North Melbourne fan myself. Any Collingwood fans in here? No? Okay, good. I don't have to kick anyone out. Cool. So you're sitting there having yourself a VB, and these two founders call you and they say, hey, we have this really great idea. We need you to come down here right away. So you're like, oh, okay. And so you finish your beer. Maybe your team's getting their ass kicked, so you just kind of leave and go down to the office and talk to these two guys. And they walk in and they explain to you they have this really great idea for an application, and they're explaining that it's like uploading pictures and upvoting and downvoting. Is like, cool. You want me to make Instagram? Okay. No, it's Uber for pictures. I was like, sure, cool. So as soon as these two pompous jackasses walk out of the room, you start thinking through, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to write this really quick because these two seem serious about it. And whatever, you're getting paid, so you don't actually care. So who in here writes code on the day-to-day? Just raise a hand. Okay. How many of you are .NET developers? Seems like most of you. Any Node developers in the house? It's my people. What's your name? Ben? Cool. So Ben and I, we're sitting in our room and we're architecting through this because we're Node developers. We write code. JavaScript is language. Thank you. That should not have gotten that many laughs. So we're thinking through our application structure, or kind of our architecture that we want to go through this. And they want this tomorrow, so we don't have any time. Ben and I were panicking at this point. We don't have any time to learn anything, right? We don't have any time to go out and learn the latest and greatest graph database or anything like that. We need an application working by the end of the day. So we sit down and we start thinking through things. We write Express because it's Node, right? That's kind of the de facto thing to do. So we write an Express application really quick, and we need a bit of help. Like, I can't go learn a brand new database, for example. But I also don't have time to worry about standing up a replica set. If we're going to write Mongo, because I've been writing Mongo for a long time. I don't have time to stand up a replica set. I don't have time to do sharding. I don't have time to do primaries and secondaries and all these kind of things, right? And that needs to be out there available, so I can't just run it off locally as well. So luckily, there's a thing called Cosmos DB. And Cosmos DB is a database that's in Azure that I don't have to worry about any of it. I don't have to set it up. I just have to say, please make me an instance of Cosmos, and then I can just start writing to it. I don't have to worry about any of the scaling of it, which is really awesome for me because I'm a developer. I don't really want to spend a bunch of time up front doing that, especially if I need to panic and write code for this. But here's what's great about it. I don't know how to write directly to Cosmos. I've never used Cosmos. I joined Microsoft like 3-4 months ago. So this is all new to me. I was a Node developer. I used to work at Netflix, and there's no .NET at Netflix. So we start writing directly to, let's bring this up. Index.ts, right there. So you can see here, I'm using this directly right here, connect Mongo. I'm not even using the Cosmos DB driver. I'm using Mongo because I know how to write to Mongo. I've been writing Mongo for a long time. This is really easy for me to do. So I start writing my application. It's a pretty standard thing, Mongo store, we're using this for sessions. This app.use, this is how you create new routes using Express. Pretty standard fare. So, and I wrote this in TypeScript. It's not something you have to do at all. It's just something that I do. I like the developer experience. And it's really nice with Visual Studio Code as well. So we get that going. We get it up and running. You can see here we're just reading, MongoDB directly, reading directly from Cosmos DB. And we put this on an app service, right? So an app service is basically you buy this big chunk of compute, and you carve up your little chunk of compute. And I don't have to worry about scaling my application. I just write a node application. I throw it out into app service, and they figure out all the routing. They figure out everything like that, so I don't have to worry about it. So Ben and I, we panic. We get through all this kind of stuff, and we end up with an application that works. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So if I come back over here, I'm going to say open all three in new window. And we end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Oh, that is my dog. Her name's Luna. So you better all upvote it or I'm going to be very upset. I will ban all of you. So you can actually jump on this right now. You can go to aka.ms/phototour, no space or anything like that. You can hop on with your phone. It works right now. You can upload photos. I used to work at Reddit. So if you post anything unsavory, I will find you, and I will make you delete it. I will also ban you and throw you out. But that's neither here nor there. So you can go there, aka.ms/phototour. How many of you in here use Reddit? Okay, how many of you are lying and actually use Reddit? Okay, I saw more hands go up that time, so cool. So we can come here, we can see that we have pictures. We can come up here and say log in, click Twitter up here. I'm going to log in as you, Scott. So now I can post whatever bad pictures I want because it's Scott, not me. So you can see here, these are some of the photos from New Zealand that we saw. So some good stuff. And come in here and click upload, choose an image. I wonder, are there any images on here? Let's just grab one of a puppy really quick. Puppies. Whatever, images. It's Google, I don't want Google to know where I am. Save image as, there we go. Downloads. Okay, upload. Choose an image, download. We have our beautiful puppy here. So cute. Submit. And we end up here with a picture of a dog. Upvote that. So you can see here you got upvote and downvote. Obviously, we're going to upvote that. And obviously, we're going to upvote Luna too because she's adorable. So we kind of get our bare bones of our application working. It's got commenting, it's all that kind of stuff. And this is all stuff that I'm not exaggerating, literally threw together in a week. I found out 10 days before I was supposed to come here that I had to write this application and give a presentation on it. So we're not exaggerating here. We're using blob storage as well for the photos. So we've taken an image and we just throw it at blob storage. It's really as easy as just saying create blob service, post to blob service, and that's it. That's all it is for image upload. It gives you back a URL, and you just serve that directly back to the client. All really cool stuff, all stuff I didn't have to scale, all stuff that scales for me. So I want to walk you through a little bit more. Oh, and this is just a normal run-of-the-mill React application. There's nothing really that interesting to say about it. So coming back to our code here, I want to show you some other really cool things from the developer's perspective about working with Azure services. So we're using VS Code. You definitely don't have to use VS Code, but I'm a fan. I was using it already when I was at Netflix. Something that I really discovered that I love about using VS Code is you can install really cool extensions. So here this morning I installed Azure Account, App Service, Cosmos DB, and it gives you this little button here on the left. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see here I have an Azure tab. I can manage all of my Azure stuff directly from here, which is amazing. So something I want to show is I'm going to click here and say Cosmos DB, and I can actually explore my database directly from my editor. So this is connecting to our subscription. Hopefully it connects. Cool. We're going to go into Photo Tours. The Photo Tour collection. the photos, oh, sorry, that's the database, photo tour database, photos collection. And I'm going to go down here to the last thing that we uploaded here. Oh, let's find the one that Scott did. There it is. So this is the one that we just uploaded with this picture, right? You can see here this is coming from blob storage, and this is the text, right? So I can actually come in here and modify this. I'm going to save it, and I should say upload. And this is actually going to go modify my database directly from my editor. So I'm going to come back in here, refresh this page. Some people have uploaded some more images. Hey, that's this guy. Upvote, sorry. So you can see right here, it's so cute, and I love this so much, right? So you can see I'm actually modifying directly my database from my editor. Like, I don't know about you, but like that blew me away. Like, I don't have to jump in the CLI, I don't have to go some stupid document explorer. I can do it directly from my editor. It's really compelling. So that's really, really awesome. And there's way more stuff that I'm showing you that you can do directly from this little Azure tab. The next thing I wanted to show you is, so our investors call me back and say like, Sam Altman is in my office right now, who's the president of Y Combinator. We need to show him something, just like get something out there that I can see right away that I can show him. So I, panic, right? Ben and I, we panic, right? We're panicking. He's panicking. You can't see it, but I can see it. Okay, so we come in here to our subscription. This is in the App Service tab. And we build our application. We run it through TypeScript. We compile all of our front-end code. And we say plus up here. And we need to choose a subscription. And we're going to actually deploy this out to the Azure cloud directly from VS Code. So global demos, we're going to put our demo for Melbourne. Okay, it's going to create, we can put this directly into the one of these. Let's do APAC Azure Tour Deploy. I'm a Node developer. I've never worked with Linux ever. I mean, you can see I'm literally on a MacBook here, right? So I'm going to put this on Linux. I'm going to choose 9.4. That's just the latest one, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put this inside of one of these. We can just put it inside of the Key Vault one. That's fine. This is actually going to start deploying this directly from my computer here, which is, to me, that's amazing. Now, I'm not going to make you sit here and wait for it. This is actually how I deployed this application here. So again, to me, that's really, really compelling that I don't have to, figure out some new deployment system. It's just directly from my editor, and we, call it right-click deploy, because literally I come in here and I can redeploy to it and say right-click and deploy to web app. And I just deploy it many times as I want to. You can even do it to the different deployment slots, so I can check it out first before I roll it into production. There's all sorts of really cool stuff you can do with app service, and we're just really scratching the surface here. But to me, as a Node developer, it's really simple. It's not something I have to really learn. It's just a couple commands here and there. Cool. So we've written our application. We compiled it. We've got our database stood up. We've got all that stuff rolling, and we deploy our application to the Y Combinator meeting. I think they get us a seed round, and so we're going to move on and start kind of fleshing this application out a little bit more. So cool. Pass it back over to Scott. Nice. Oh, the last thing I was going to say, people were probably saying, like, why are you wearing an Australia jersey? I lost a bet, which is Americans aren't in the World Cup anymore, so I have to wear this for the rest of the tours. So.
All right, I'm going to throw something else at you, Brian.
Sure.
We've already started having people use our apps, so we've defined market fit. Do you like the app? It's working? Anybody get a crash?
Of course not.
You got a crash? Upload fail. Maybe bandwidth? We gotta get some more. Can we get some more internet for the front row?
Just up that, thank you.
So now that people are using the app, though, let's talk about analytics. How are we going to know who's doing what, where they are, what the failures are, maybe?
I mean, I guess we got to make money, right? So we need to figure out how people are using.
If we have analytics, I feel like I can get more money.
Absolutely. So again, I used to work on the metrics team at Netflix, and that's literally a whole team of people at Netflix that are just gathering all of your data. Like, no, don't worry about that. It's strictly above board. but they also know where you live, so no big deal. Okay, so I'm worrying about doing this because I've spent literally years of my life, and I imagine many of you have spent years of your life gathering metrics. So I Slack Ben, because Ben is a lot smarter than me, and he sends me this thing over Slack. And he's like, no, it's no big deal, just copy and paste this directly in your code, like Stack Overflow style. So I open my index.ts here, source, and I come here and I import this app insight stuff at the top. Let's get that uncommented here. And here, and it says app insights.setup, and you just give it an instrumentation key and you say start. And like, that's it? Like, there's not any more to this? And it's, no, that's really just it right there. And this will gather all of your back-end metrics. You don't have to do anything else for your Node application. And it's pretty similar across languages as well. I was like, okay, that gives us our server-side metrics, but what about front-end stuff? Like, you also still need to, need like the analytics of like where people are coming from, response times, and things like that. So we're going to come back into index.html, and you can see here I'm importing my app insights.js here. So let's go check that out, app insights.js. And again, it's just
Script vomit.
Script vomit, yeah. You can see like it's literally, can I just word wrap? There we go. So it's just something you copy and paste. This, gathers all the information that you need and just sends it off to some servers to be processed later. And like it works. It really is that simple. I don't really know much more than that, but I can show you here some of the metrics that it's gathering here. And this is everything this is all the back-end metrics right now. So you can see server response time, page view, load time, how many server requests. This is probably has more information on it, so I'll refresh it. And while it's refreshing, I'll show you this as well. Come back in here. So the front-end stuff is actually really cool. It exposed like a complex query language. So if you have like marketing people that really want to slice and dice, or data science people that want to slice and dice the data, they have a full query language at their disposal. And let's go to analytics. That's what I wanted right there. So let's check out just by country where people are coming from, and we'll run this query right here. Let's say within the past 24 hours, we have people coming. This is mostly from Australia. You can see right there. That makes sense. Some United States, some Singapore, New Zealand, up in this area right here. And this is actually the query that runs to gather all that information. And then back here, again, yeah, you can see all of the data that's coming in from the back-end services as well.
I think I will remove the term script vomit from our pitch deck. I think that'd be a bad thing to leave that in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just between us developers.
Okay,
yeah.
we won't share that.
Okay.
All right, so success, we did it. Thank you.
Yep.
So how many of you are using languages other than .NET? Because it kind of goes without saying, with everything we do with Microsoft, we're going to do .NET as a first-class citizen. But who's programming something other than .NET? Tell me what it is. Angular? React? Node? Python? All those things are fully supported. Java, Linux, everything is fully supported. So our message today is you bake the cake however you want, and then we want to make it better, be the icing on the cake when you bring it to Azure. So what we're going to do now is jump back to the presentation. We've gone through the web apps. Let's talk a little bit about DevOps CI/CD. CI/CD is a term we all throw around. If it's new to you, that stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Two totally different things, but also partnered together in the same, on the same floor of our Azure mansion, if you will. So what you saw Brian do was what we also referred to as right-click deploy. And it's a phenomenal way to deploy to get something running. It's great for prototyping. It's something that I use on a regular basis while I'm in development. I just want to prove that it works somewhere other than my machine. Right-click deploy, new web app, give me a URL, blah, 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 blah. Click save, go, and I get an error message. Then I figure out why. So I'm like fine-tuning so that I can show somebody else, just like Brian did. But I would challenge that no one, including yourself, should be trusted to deploy to production. How many of you used to, when you first started building websites, you use FTP deploy? Yeah. How many of you messed that up and broke your server, your live production server, because you uploaded the wrong index file? And you're like, and then you go, and then you fix it, and you put the new file up, and you're like, oh my gosh, the server was down. I was off for line for like 15 seconds. And you just wait to see if the phone's going to ring. And the phone didn't ring, and no one called you, and you totally got away with it, right? How many of you did that twice? A couple of you, okay. We should not be trusted as humans to deploy to production because we cannot guarantee that we'll do the same thing all the time, every time. So continuous integration is going to be triggered off of your source control. Check in source control to master. That's going to trigger a build. And the build is just a task engine. It literally is no more than step A, step B, step C, D, E, F. And you define all of those steps. The very first thing is always go get source control, because that's where you start building something. And then the very last thing is an artifact that you drop somewhere. And typically that's what triggers your deployment. That's the continuous delivery model. Now if something breaks, if step C breaks, then your build is broken, and obviously nothing then gets deployed. And so it's up to you to figure out what those steps are. Go get source, then maybe you do some linting, you do some test running, you make sure that everything is working so that that artifact that's created at the end is exactly the same all the time, every time, but with the new software features or bug fixes that you've developed. So that's continuous integration, and then we'll look at continuous deployment. So I have some demos set up here as well. Let me just close out Brian's tabs. We're going to look at CI/CD, open 9 tabs in a new window. While that's loading, we'll just look at the puppy again. Aww. And then let's close this one as well. Okay, so now we have a continuous integration dashboard that is loading. Now, this morning, I showed you over here on the left side is the navigation here. So if I just simply click Create Resource and then scroll down, you'll see that we have the ability to create a DevOps project. I'm going to click that. And then it's going to give us a little bit of a wizard that says, tell us a little bit about what your project is like, because based on these answers, I'm going to create some steps for you. If it's Node, I'm going to do something from NPM, or if it's .NET, I might restore packages from NuGet. So I'm just going to give you a little kickstart based on what you select here. So Brian said this is a Node app. We'll click that, then say next. Then we are just building a simple node. Oh, no, you said it was Express, right, Brian? Okay, Express, so next. And then are we deploying to, this is what we were talking about this morning. Are we deploying to some dedicated code in an app service? Are we deploying to a container environment? Or are we just deploying maybe even to something simple like a web app? This is what we'll select for now. This is all configurable and can be changed. In fact, later today, Bernd is going to show us about the Kubernetes service. So if that's exciting to you, make sure you stick around. So we'll select web app, then next. Then we ask, how are you going to pay for this? What resource group do you want to put it in? That's basically the account and the resource group. And this would take about 5 minutes to get set up. Luckily, I have tab number 2 that has already done that for us. This is I haven't changed anything with this. This is out of the box, next, 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 wait 5 minutes. And now at the left-hand side of the screen, we have 3 items that are important. And they are, where's the code coming from? What's the build definition? That's CI, that's continuous integration. And then what's the deployment strategy? That's the CD. So here we have the source code, CI, CD. And you can name these whatever you want. I've just simply named that. I actually typed that in -CI so that it helps with the demo. But literally, this can be anything that you want. And if we look at this build definition, I'll go ahead and open this. And what I want to do is actually edit this build definition so that I can show you the steps. These are the steps that the wizard is creating for us out of the box. And it's pretty simple. And so if we look here, you'll see we have get the source control, right? Here's where it's coming from. So we want to pull from the master branch. Then what node version are we using? So 6.9 or whatever matches your version. Then we do an npm install. Then we archive the files. Now notice here we have some variables that we're saying, drop this into a working directory, give it a build number, a build ID.zip. I mean, at the end of the day, your continuous integration story is get the source code, run the test, do your linting, do your minification, create some assets that I can ship off to a server. And in the majority of the time, that is simply going to be a zip file that we then copy to a folder and then publish that artifact. And that's going to trigger the build. Now, everyone in here is going to end up with a build system that is more mature than this. This is literally out of the box. This is also free, by the way. This is something that you can initiate from the Azure portal. So you're inside the Azure mansion, you walk into the DevOps room and you say, I need a new DevOps, and it stamps one out for you. But what that really does is it goes to visualstudio.com, creates a whole entire environment for you that you can then log into. In fact, if you peek at the URL, it has taken me to visualstudio.com, right? I can make that a little bit bigger. So whatever the instance there, and so now everything that I'm going to show you is highly integrated between Azure and visualstudio.com, but we did kind of jump over a bridge there, or maybe out the window. Maybe that's not a good saying. Anyway, so now we're doing continuous integration and deployment into visualstudio.com. This is free for small teams. What you do end up paying for, because you'll hit up against that free limit, they charge you for build hours. And I think you get 10 or some number of build hours per month. Maybe it's 5. And then it's an additional spend for more build hours on top of that. But out of the box, the majority of people can use this for free. So if I jump over to my 4th tab now, the purpose of this tab is simply to show you a more mature build pipeline. Now, this may or may not be real based on some of the things that you're doing. Maybe we have some older assets in here, or maybe you have something that is custom to your workflow. There's a giant plus sign here, and you simply click plus, and now you'll see add task. And there are literally over 500 tasks that you can choose from. Many of them are first party that come from Microsoft out of the box. Many of them are from a marketplace. So someone like DocuSign or some of our other integration partners, it's up to them to build the task that runs in your pipeline. If you don't find something here, you can actually build it yourself using PowerShell or Node and create your own custom task manager. So literally, there's nothing that can't be done in this environment. You can deploy iOS apps, you can deploy Android apps, you can deploy Node apps, you can deploy Python, .NET, whatever your liking is, there's a task in here. There's a lot of data management stuff as well, so if you need to massage databases, if you need to spin up Q&A databases or delete Q&A databases, you can do things along the way. So one of the things that I have not yet talked about is environments. So far, we have this mental model of taking code off of Brian's machine and getting it to a server. And I said, well, that's good for prototyping, but when we really want to step into production, we want to automate that with CI/CD. It would be a mistake if you only use the power of CI/CD to get to production. Instead, you want to do something a little more mature. So for example, here's a dev environment. Let's get our code running in another environment, and we'll call it dev. It's not Brian's machine, it's dev. And it's throwaway. It's okay to break. It's okay to do speed tests. It's okay to fail there. You're probably not hitting against a production database. In fact, Brian may not even have access to a production database. When he's in his IDE changing that JSON file, that's a development database that Brian doesn't have access to. So once we're done with dev, let's create a new thing called, let's see, after dev, let's go to QA. And then after QA, let's go to Canary. And then, whoops, let's spell that right. And then after Canary, let's go to production. And how many of you are doing blue-green deploys or Canary deploys? This may be a new concept for you. So we can't get too deep in the weeds, but I want to spark some imagination so that you have this concept to think about what this type of build environment is. So dev is obvious, QA is obvious. A lot of people go from QA right to production. There's a couple of things we can do here. With the magic of DNS, we can actually serve 1 or 3 or X% of your live production traffic to the Canary build. Now, this doesn't cost any more to run either, because when you have your applications in app service, you can create as many app sites as you want in your app service plan. So like Brian was mentioning, the app service, that's your hosting plan. That's the machine that you're buying, And then you could put 10 websites on it. You could put 50 websites on it. You could keep just one. You could do environments side by side. It's really up to you to figure out how you want this to run. But with the magic of DNS, we can do a canary build, and we can do a different instrumentation key from application insights on the canary branch, so we can then see if what you're building is going to break more than 1% of your error rate or whatever your threshold is. Now, there is actually not a deployment between canary and production. Instead, there's a DNS swap, which means once you've approved canary, it's already warmed up, it's live. Now you just swap, and you say take production to 1% and canary to 99%, and now you have a very smooth running process as your deployment. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's literally crazy things where people get into microservices. They have a different deployment pipeline for each one of the services. You can really go crazy. In fact, if I look at the next scenario here, I've only talked about deploying our web app. What about our mobile app? What about our API? What about some other service maybe that we've built for the marketing department that's on the side? So you may end up with something even more mature that's like this. So every time I trigger source control, even on a specific branch, I then trigger my continuous integration, and once that's done, it then gets deployed. Now let me zoom into this, just any one of these. You'll notice that on the left side, we have conditions. On the right side, we have conditions. So every build has a precondition and a postcondition. That pre and postcondition can either be a human check, or a group of human checks, or a quorum of humans. You can have 5 people on that list, and when the first 3 sign off, then that's approved. We don't know which 3 they are, it doesn't matter. As long as you have quorum, then that could be a pre-build condition. So for example, before you get to canary, maybe you have a third-party penetration test company that's going to be notified by web service that there's a build for them to test. They're going to download those bits, do the testing. Then maybe they go into a machine approval, something like DocuSign. It says, yes, I've approved this. These can be deployed. So, there's apps of all different shapes and sizes with different importance. We're developing a fun photo app. We're not really going to end someone's life if something goes wrong. Like, we could put some 500s in production. We may even want to do that, and if we're looking at, A/B test splitting our error pages. Like, there's lots of valid reasons that that's okay. And only 4 people are using it so far. That also makes it okay, right? It's not that important of an app. But if I'm a hospital and I'm deploying code to an IoT device that's going to turn something on or off that may change somebody's life, then I probably have a more mature deployment pipeline, right? So what our job is to be the icing on the cake that you build, and then you define the steps and what the importance is. So let's look at one of these. If I just zoom out so you can see the navigation. As I click the conditions, you'll see that we then have humans we can add as approvers, and then we can put a timeout on how much time we have for them to do it. Then we also have a gate. So if I enable this gate, you'll see that we can then add one of these 4 out of the box. And if we go through these, the first one is query work items. This is saying, go back to my version control system, look at bugs, do a query, and if I have a breaking bug, dump this out. We're not going to deploy it. That bug could have been automatically filed from application insights or from some other tests that are failing. Or it could be a person that says, hey, version 1.2.3 has a catastrophic bug, file that in. That's going to stop our deployment. We also have the ability to query the alerts through a number of different systems. One of them that's built in is application insights. So imagine now I've got all the way to my canary build, and I'm going to make a decision. Do I want to swap this into production? I'm going to write a query here that says how many errors are coming out of the canary build, and then make a choice based on that. If one of these 2 is not good enough, you can actually do a custom REST endpoint. So that's hitting your own webhook. You can make your own choices based on what's happening. This is how the DocuSign demo is working. And then, of course, you can trigger an Azure function. So literally, the world is your imagination on what you want to run with deploying this code. So let me zoom out here, and we'll actually go to the next tab where we have that DocuSign example. So we've gone through dev. There's no pre and post gates. Once it's done through dev, it automatically triggers to QA. That's been human approved. And if I look at the gates on the QA, you can see that it was in fact approved by a human, and then the gates all succeeded. This is an Azure function, and the first time it ran is at 4:11, no good. We don't have a DocuSign done. Next time it ran was at 4:16. Next time it ran was at 4:21. So when you create these gates, you say, check this gate every X interval for Y time. So I'm saying every 5 minutes, go check the automated system if I got a DocuSign back, and do that for 48 hours. If I don't get it in that answer, then the deployment breaks and nothing happens. You get an error report, right? So that's pretty cool. Again, that's up to you and your imagination with the code that you're deploying as to how important it is and what you want to spend time with. So one of the things that we all learned as developers over the last decade, and we all actually had a lot of pain with this, but now we realize that there's only one way to keep your source control safe, or your source code safe, and that is via source control. I don't think there's a development office on the planet now that's not putting their source code in some sort of source control sooner than later. 10 years ago, you may have had some different opinions because I'd used the source control and I lost all my code, or I did a merge and it didn't work and I lost my work. But that's no longer the case. What I've just convinced you, though, for the last 15 minutes is that CI/CD is great, but some would not like that idea because it's all UI driven. Click, 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 done. And now we just hope it stays into that state. So we're advancing the CI/CD pipeline into code. So now you have the ability to code your deployments via an industry standard called YAML. So when I just clicked on a YAML button, and this is now the YAML definition of everything that I've done as a human in the CI/CD or in the build definition. So watch what I do here. Command A, Command C. I just copied all that to my clipboard. Let me zoom out. I'm going to jump over here to my file system. This is actually Visual Studio Code peeking inside of the source control that it's already downloaded. And you'll notice that I have a file here that's called vsts-ci.yaml. I'm just going to open that file. And then I will click on Edit. And we have then deleted and now pasted a new definition. And I'll just say new def, which is going to let me then commit a new file. And on commit, Visual Studio is going to say, oh, you have created a new build definition, and it's going to create that definition for us based on a stamped version of your continuous integration. So this is awesome. It's good news, bad news. The good news is this feature is rolling out around the world. So if you don't have it today, you'll have it in the next couple of weeks. You'll see a view YAML next to all of your build definitions. Bad news, we don't yet have it for releases. So we have your build definition that we can save to YAML. We don't have the release pipeline to YAML, but I know that's being worked on, and that's something that has been promised to be delivered. I don't have a date, but our goal is to be able to let you source control your continuous integration and your continuous deployment. Do you like that? Oh, the applause. Thank you. OK, so I'm going to actually open a tab back here. So we're going to work on these. In fact, let me just close everything to get back to a nice little demo. We're going to not save this. I'm going to click on Build and Releases. And currently, you're seeing only one of these. There's going to be a single line item here. And this is the build definition that I have been showing you. Actually, it looks like a couple of people have been testing this. So as I click on Commit on this particular file and save it with whatever notes we have, if I come back over here and refresh, you're going to see that a new build is kicked off, and it has just been defined by that build definition. So when the VSTS YAML file changes, we're going to trigger off a new build and then go through that entire set of deployment scripts. So that's CI/CD. That's continuous integration and continuous deployment. And we're going to switch directions for just a few more minutes and talk about security. So if I just jump back to our slides, we're going to then, I'm going to assume that I have just succeeded with a very simple task, No one's allowed to human deploy to production. Who agrees with that now? Come on, friends. Nice. Do not deploy to production because you just cannot trust yourself. So let's go to security. On our photo tour app, it was a little bit of a throwaway comment, but Brian lets people log in with Twitter. Twitter uses OAuth. That is driven from one of the rooms in our Azure mansion called Azure Active Directory. How many of you are using Active Directory? Nice, good show of hands. So there's two forms of Active Directory. One is for employees. My Active Directory is for my employees to log in to my internal operations. And then we have, this is a mouthful, Azure AD B2C, which is Active Directory Business to Consumer. And business to consumer is all of the popular login mechanisms that are online. That is going to be Google, it's going to be Twitter, it's going to be Facebook, and anything you want to add on top of that that is either built in out of the box or supports OAuth. You could have people log in with Dropbox or whatever the mechanism that you choose. Now, Brian's using Azure Active Directory, and he secured his app. We're going to take a right turn from the photo tour demo just for a moment and look at a dashboard here that I have called APAC Security, which has been deleted. That's cool. Let's look at shared dashboards. Oh, here it is. I forgot that I shared that with the rest of the team, so it's a different URL. So here's a custom dashboard that I have set up. And we're going to look at an insecure app. In fact, I'm going to do a couple of things here with the idea of security. And if we look at this resource group, you can see that we have, so here's a resource group. It's named DevTour Insecure App. So like earlier, I told you you're going to group together a bunch of resources. Here's a SQL database. Here's the SQL server. So two different resources, right? One's the server, one's the catalog in that server. Then we have an app service plan. You can see that's Windows, only because the person who created this named it AZ DevTour-Windows. I'm sure there's one for Linux being used somewhere else. Inside the app service plan, there's an app service. That's the web app. That's the AZ DevTour Insecure app. We're going to open that, and then we'll see the URL of that app is displayed right up here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and then we'll open in a new tab. So now I have this insecure app that is running. Now you heard us make some jokes about this earlier, but how many of you have done this? How many of you have built this screen? All of you. But now you're tired of raising your hand because we haven't eaten in an hour, so I'm not raising my hand anymore. But you've built this screen, username and password. What's your email? What's your password? I'm going to show you something called SQL injection. It's one of the #1 vulnerabilities online. It's very easy for a developer to deploy code that's susceptible to SQL injection. Some of you already know what this is. Many of you don't. But I'm going to blow your mind. So we're going to put an email address in here, me@scottkate.com. I should probably use my work address, scottca@microsoft.com. I don't have access to whatever this database is. So I'm going to put in a password and click submit, and then it's going to give me back an unhappy sign. Your login has failed. That's how the internet works, right? You try to log in and it fails. Watch this. I'm going to put in a password of anything. You're going to see this in a second, so I got to type it right. Anything. And now look at my fancy email address. Tick or 1 = 1 terminate comment. How many of you have written T-SQL for your whole life? Lots of you, right? SQL Server is our background. We've put thousands of hours in apps and millions of rows inside of SQL Server databases. This is SQL injection. So imagine, if you will, that you're the developer that wrote this code, and you're doing something like select star from customers, where, email address like, open tick, plus user input, close tick, right? That's T-SQL. It's very flawed because you're not using something called parameterized query. If you're using a parameterized query, that's the #1 way to avoid being susceptible to SQL injection. But now that we have an app that's that is susceptible to SQL injection, when I click submit, bam, I have access to that application. Now here's the funny thing. When people break into your app, they usually don't call and tell you, right? They just take all your data. That's what all the breaches are for. How many of you know our friend Troy Hunt, right? He's got millions and millions and millions, or maybe hundreds of millions now. How many? Like one email address for every person on the planet that has been breached by all of the major sites. And obviously the details of each one of them are unique, but a lot of sites are susceptible to SQL injection. So here's the icing on the cake. Your cake is SQL Server. You can run that wherever you want. If you run it inside Azure, let me show you what you get. If we come back to the Dev Tour portal, and remember we have this, we talked about a SQL Server and a database. I'm going to open that database. And then under something called threat protection, Azure actually has already sent me an email and has said, we think your database is being compromised. So if I scroll down here into threat protection, click, it's going to load, and take a look down at the bottom. I'm going to open my 17 vulnerabilities. These are high severity. You can set alerts on this, by the way, to send people text messages, emails, phone calls. You can do a phone ring, so you call 6 people. You can really do whatever you want in order to do the alerting. Again, this is the icing on the cake. We're not pretending you can't run your SQL Server anywhere on any cloud or any dedicated server in your own office, wherever. But this is something that you're only going to get with Azure. So we're actually telling you, we think your server has been compromised, so much so that this is the SQL injection attack. This is also part of the email that we get. So here's the code that the developer wrote. Select star from customer, where email address equals tick, tick. That's SQL injection. How many of you just went, oh my gosh, I'm so scared right now, I have to go fix my code? A couple of you. So the security that we're talking about, again, is that icing on the cake. This is something that Azure is giving you for free. You're not paying extra for this. You are paying for SQL Server, but this is something that you're going to get out of the box. So let's look at another part of, actually I want to leave that tab open. Let's look at this database. So far, you have seen me log into this website with the username and password. Now, a developer on our team wrote this. I didn't write the demo. But what I can do as the Azure mansion owner, if you will, hey, I've never said that before. I own a mansion. What I can do is actually secure this with Twitter without the developer having to do anything. And the first time I heard this, I totally downplayed it as BS because I'm a developer. I'm like, I have to be able to write code in order to know that a Twitter user is authenticated. But here's what happens. You deploy your app to Azure, which we've already done. There's a button you can click, I'm going to show you in a minute, that will create an entire proxy around your app and then secure that and force Twitter authentication. So now nobody can get to your app unless you've forced them to log in. Now I want to be clear, I'm using Twitter as an example, but you can create that boundary with your own Azure Active Directory or Facebook or any other OAuth provider. So I'm using Twitter as an example, but don't be locked in that that's the only solution. So we're going to look back at the portal, which I just closed. Let me just reopen that. Command-Shift-T, did you guys know that reopens your last tab? It's a good shortcut. Works on both Windows and Mac. Control-Shift-T on Windows. OK, so let's look at the application. We were here just a moment ago because we looked at the URL for the app. And let me just go back to this dashboard. I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm clicking on. Here's the app service for Insecure App. Once that loads, we're going to then look down the side here for something called Authentication Authorization. Right? So I'm going to click that. That's then going to give me an option that says, this is currently a service that's turned off. So here's the button. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, that wasn't very exciting. So what do you want to do with anonymous traffic? We're going to make anonymous traffic log in with Twitter. And then in order to do that, you have to supply Twitter credentials, which I've already configured. But if I were adding something like Facebook, you literally just have to put in the API key of whatever the OAuth provider is that you're using. So I've already done that with Twitter. So literally, all I'm going to do now is press save. So we'll click save. This is going to, here's what happens behind the scenes for our developer minds. We're installing an HTTP module with the name of .auth. It's literally period AUTH. So there's now a new phantom folder in your app that's accessible from authorization. So I've given this just a second. When we install that module, it does restart the app, so there's a couple of seconds of downtime. But now if I come back to this, if I simply press F5 to refresh the page, it's going to say, hey, you're not logged in with Twitter. Redirect to Twitter. I've already authenticated this app. Now come back. Right? So that was pretty cool. I just forced Twitter auth onto an app. And so this is great because the developers in your office can deploy apps with just writing the actual application itself, and then the Azure Mansion owner, me, can secure those apps, and then you can do all your apps the same way. Now, this may not be the end-all, be-all. You can also use Azure Active Directory, and there's a ton more services. I'm just scratching the surface on some things that are available. So now as your developer brain kicks in, your question is, how is my app going to integrate with Twitter? And here is where, if you wanted to do that, for example, draw an avatar on the screen, you are going to have to write a tiny bit of code in order to say, hey, is the user logged in? And you do that with the .auth URL that I talked about. So if we look here, you can see we have a .auth/me. When I opened my 5 tabs about 10 minutes ago, this 404'd because that HTTP module was not installed. Now that it's installed and I refresh, it's going to show me information about the user. So these are the claims that came back from Twitter. So if I look here, you can see there's my screen name, here's my image, and if we look at this code, you can then, let me just zoom out and make sure. If we look at this code, which we've written called EasyAuth, then you have the idea that you're going to interrogate that file, bring it back, it's a JSON file, do something in JavaScript, check if you have some claims, and then actually draw out a URL or whatever the photo URL is. So you don't have to do that, but if you want to do as an app developer, integrate with that Azure AD B2C, it's a mouthful, then you can just interrogate that .auth/me. So the next thing I want to talk about with security is secrets. In fact, Brian, I know this is not rehearsed, but let me bring you back up. Let's talk for a minute about something called Key Vault. So as Brian told you earlier, he's simply focused on writing a Node app. And the Node app was also, he was bragging about something else of using MongoDB. Well, how does a Node app talk to MongoDB? It has a
connection string.
Has a connection string. Where's the connection string stored?
Hard-coded.
That's right. It is stored in your environment variables file, or if you're a .NET app, maybe it's stored in your web config, right? And then you deploy that. That's very bad. You don't want to do that. So that's another big security vulnerability. So Azure has something called Key Vault. This is another one of our good names, by the way. It's a vault that you put your keys in.
Secrets.
Nice. See how that works? Secrets. So tell us a little bit about Key Vault. How did you use it, and why is it awesome?
Sure. I love Key Vault because I don't have to worry about credentials, right? How many of you have started a company and they just give you a whole bunch of credentials when you first walk in the door, right? Like, here's your JSON file of your life, right?
Don't shut the company down.
Yeah. Also, don't lose it because we don't have any more copies. That's happened to me. So Key Vault is this really cool thing that you just throw all your secrets in. I have it up here. This is all the secrets that we needed for our particular things. So it has our Twitter key, our Twitter secret, where we're storing our session stuff, where we're putting all that stuff. It's all in here.
But I feel there's a little bit of chicken and egg because we've taken a connection string to Mongo and we've put it in Key Vault. So then my next question is, how does your app connect to Key Vault?
Right, which is a good question.
Which is another connection string.
For me, I actually have the credentials on my local environment, which is not too big of a deal, but our actual server out in production, it's actually authenticated by where it is, right? Because it's out in our deployment, we know that we call it a principal, right?
That's right.
it just knows, and it doesn't even have to have a connection string. It just, because of who it is, what server it is, it automatically gets to connect, and it can read those secrets directly out of it.
So think a service principal, think of single sign-on. So if you're part of the domain and then you go to a website, you don't have to log in because your domain credentials are passed along with you. And you guys know what I'm talking about? Inside of Azure, we now can create a service principal for every resource in Azure. So the SQL Server, the Node app, or literally every resource can be a service principal. And then Key Vault, you can authorize service principals. So just by the nature of the application hitting through DNS, the credentials come from the app, and now you can get into a full secure connection string-less environment. Now, good news, bad news. We're kind of sharing a little bit of a dirty laundry with you. We don't have service principals today for Node apps. We do have it for ASP.NET apps. So for Node app, we are actually deploying a connection string, which we're not proud of, and we're working towards making that better.
It's getting fixed.
But that's our goal. So that's Key Vault. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yep.